The first time I started using Ostenil, I'd been having swelling in my knee that I couldn't counter for a long time, and then the doctor recommended that we try a course of Ostenil. I remember being a bit sceptical at first, but once we'd done the first course, it was, I think, 1 injection every week for 3 weeks, and then we backed off and left it for about 4 or 5 weeks, and then we went again with another course. The difference I felt in the knee was like night and day. It went from being like a really stiff, sticky joint that I was constantly aware of. The minute you step out of bed, you put your foot down, you can feel you've got inflammation in your knee, like a sticky joint. I call it a sticky joint because it feels sticky. It feels like when the bones get together, it sticks to come back off when you've got inflammation in there. But after the second course of Ostenil, you're not even aware that there's any problem in the joint. I knew I always needed to be 100% going into games to be able to give me best. If I wasn't 100%, I couldn't give me best. I knew I was never going to have a great game. You're playing within yourself. Also, when you've got inflammation in your joint, your muscles work harder to try to protect it. So your muscles getting tired quicker. You're cramping up. You're just off your game psychologically. It plays games with you. If I had one of the injections 2 days before a game, I felt fantastic going into the game, and I knew I could give it my best shot. I actually only discovered it after my operations, but I do wish, in hindsight, that I would have had Ostenil to stave off the operation, but it wasn't. It was the other way round. It helped me and prolonged my career, but I do wish I'd discovered it a lot earlier. I remember having one treatment in Munich, radiation therapy onto the knee. I would have went anywhere. I was at a really low point. I was desperate, and I was searching the internet, and I was trying to find these world-renowned doctors who could come up with a cure, because I knew I was on borrowed time. I think after I came round from the operation, I think the doctor, I do remember having that conversation with him, and he said to me, don't plan for playing beyond 30. I mean, I was only 25 at the time, so that was a bit of a blow. But then after the second operation is when the doctor introduced the Ostenil to me, and the process of having the injections, or the course, the treatment, however you want to call it, I mean, I had a lot of faith in the doctor. I had already worked with him in the past. I knew it wasn't going to be invasive, but at the end of the day, you're having an injection into a joint, so it can be a little bit scary for some people. But for me, I'd had that many injections and that many operations up to that point, that nothing was going to scare me, anything that was going to really help. And as long as I knew it wasn't going to hinder me, it was very quick and an easy procedure. It's probably best to let it rest for 24 hours, but some days I didn't. I was quite keen to get back on the pitch, simply because it felt so good. The joint felt healthy, and I wanted to get out on the pitch and get my boots on and give it my best shot. After games, if I hadn't had the treatment, instantly walking off the pitch, I could feel that swelling was coming into the joint. But once I'd had a course, or at least 2 courses of the Ostenil, you can feel it. It's easier for a couple of days afterwards. I've been retired 10 years now, but I still have the treatment done to this day. I do go and talk to some of the old pros now. Some of them can't move. They've had, some of the horror stories on how many cortisone injections they've had in these joints. Is a bit scary, really. I always knew that if I'd have had cortisone, it was going to degenerate the joint eventually quicker. And I always wanted to maintain a healthy joint. So I've had 10 years of playing in exhibition games and, Masters and Legends games. And, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't looked after my joints while I was playing. It's like a hotline back to a difficult time in my career. It's not a time that I want to go back to, but, it helped get me through. And it helps get me through everyday life now. And, if players are struggling out there because they've had too many cortisone injections, then I'd be there to recommend Ostenil, at the drop of a hat. I had 0 side effects with this stuff. I can only remember positive things. I just wish it could have lasted longer in between courses, but I think the intensity that I was putting through my joints, at the end of the day, I've got a degenerating joint and I'm trying to preserve it, but I'm trying to batter it at the same time. I'm trying to be as fit as I possibly can. I'm training 2-3 times a day to try and maintain a career at the highest level. Thankfully, I got another 4 or 5 years out of this joint simply because of Ostenil.
Real players, real lives, real football.